I think we should explore a few solutions.
Grammarly suggestions catch when your tone might undermine.
Hello, you are watching Quick Definitions. Stated clearly. What is an allele in genetics? As we've learned in earlier videos, a gene is a stretch of DNA, usually a long stretch of DNA, that codes for something. What exactly do genes code for? Technically, they either code for specific proteins or they act as templates for functional chains of RNA, but because proteins and chains of RNA go on to produce traits, things like eye color and bone length, we can say that an organism's genes, in a roundabout way, code for an organism's traits. An allele is an alternative version of a specific gene. If that sounds confusing, that's okay. It should become clear once we see a simplified example. Let's say there is a gene in a species of frog that codes for the frog's eye color. We will call it the eye color gene. No need to get too creative here. This frog has a version of the eye color gene, an allele of the eye color gene, that codes for yellow eyes. He has the yellow allele of the eye color gene. His buddy here has a different allele, a different version of the eye color gene. He has the red allele of the eye color gene. Now, This hypothetical example is overly simplistic. In real life, there are multiple different genes and sometimes environmental factors that all play together to determine an animal's eye color. Also, most animals have two copies of their own DNA, meaning that a single animal can actually have two different alleles or two different versions of any given gene in its own genome. Furthermore, most alleles don't have any actual effect at all on a creature's observable traits, but don't worry about any of these technicalities for now. The important thing to understand is this: an allele is an alternative version of a specific gene. That's it. New alleles, new versions of old genes, come into existence via mutations. Once a new allele exists, it is forced to compete with other alleles in the population. For example, when the yellow eye allele happened to emerge within our hypothetical frog species, it might have given its host a survival advantage because its host could better blend into its environment and hide from predators. Because of this, over many, many generations, the yellow allele could dominate the population, completely outcompeting the red allele, causing the red allele's extinction. When an allele dominates an entire population, we call this fixation. So there you have it. An allele is an alternative version of a specific gene. I'm John Perry, and that was a quick definition of an allele stated clearly.
Versions, but it was all the same element. Yes, different versions of the same element. Alleles are just different versions of the same gene, okay? And you will get one allele from mom and you will get one allele from dad. Those two alleles might be the same. Maybe you got brown eyes and brown eyes, okay? Or they might be different. Maybe you got one brown eye allele and one blue eye allele, okay? Or maybe you got two blues. So they can be the same, they can be different, but they're just different versions of the same gene. Okay, so that's our first new vocab word for the day, is allele. A couple of years ago, I had like a class that was obsessed with calling them alleles. So if you like that, you can call them alleles, but it is actually pronounced allele. And they are different versions of the same gene, and often we will represent them with capital and lowercase letters, okay? So if we have the brown eye allele, we can represent that with a capital B. So if we're drawing a chromosome, we can write a capital B on it and say, there on that chromosome, there's a brown eye gene, okay? We can also have a blue eye allele, and we can write it as a lowercase b. And I don't know if you remember, we talked about this last day. We have the dominant and recessive alleles. The dominant ones are the ones that sort of overpower the other ones. So for example, if you have a parent who has blue eyes, but you have a parent who has brown eyes, and you have brown eyes, you might have one brown eye allele, which makes brown pigment, and one blue eye allele, which makes blue pigment. But which one is like gonna sort of cover up the other one? Brown is darker than blue, so if you have brown, you won't see the blue, even though the blue is there. Does that make sense? So you actually have both, possibly, right? But you only see the one that is dominant, okay? You don't really need to know about dominant and recessive for this year, but I do bring it up because you will be doing a lot with it next year. Next year's focus is on genetics, okay? So that's our first word, is alleles, different versions of the same gene. Our next new word is homologous chromosomes. A pair of chromosomes that contain all the same genes at the same locations. So do you remember we talked last day about having 23 pairs of chromosomes? Each of those pairs is a homologous pair, okay? So you have chromosome number 2 from mom and chromosome number 2 from dad. Those are a homologous pair. Chromosome number 12 from mom and number 12 from dad, that's a homologous pair. And whatever those pairs are, they will have the same genes at the same locations, but they might have different alleles of each gene. They might have different versions. Okay? So here are 2 homologous chromosomes. One is inherited from the male parent. We call that the paternal homologue. You don't need to know the word paternal homologue, but that's the one that came from dad. And if you remember, that's the symbol. Mars is shield and spear. Not that these are sexist symbols in any way or shape or form. And then the maternal one is Venus's hand mirror, okay? So one from mom and one from dad. And you'll notice that they are the same size. Yes, these 2 chromosomes are the same size. And if you look along the length of the chromosomes, the R's are in the same position as each other. The P genes are in the same position. So are the A's, the B's, and the C's. Those are all in the same positions as one another. We call those genetic locations a genetic locus. Okay, so a locus is a location. I'm not going to make you learn that word. Not a required word. Okay, as opposed to homologous chromosome, which is vocab, and alleles, which are vocab. Okay. At each genetic locus or location, an individual will have 2 alleles, one on each homologous chromosome. And sometimes you can see the alleles will be the same. We have capital A and capital B. Yes? We have little b and little b, but sometimes they will be different alleles. You can see we have a little c and a big C. Do you remember the prefix that means the same? Homo means the same. So here's our next word. Homozygous, homo meaning the same, means having 2 alleles that are the same. Now, because blue-eye genes are recessive, I know that I am homozygous for blue eyes, okay? Because I got a blue-eye gene from my mom and I've got a blue-eye gene from my dad, okay? And they both have blue eyes. It's pretty straightforward. So if you have a blue-eye gene and a blue-eye gene, that would be homozygous, but you could also have a brown-eye gene, which I'm going to highlight in green because, of course, I don't have a brown highlighter. Brown-eye gene and a brown-eye gene, and that would also be homozygous. Can you guess what the other word is when the 2 alleles are different? Heterozygous. Hetero, of course, means different. So my son has brown eyes. I have blue eyes. So there's no way I have a brown eye gene to pass on to him. So that means that in his DNA, there is a blue eye gene in there, but you don't see it because the brown pigment coats over the blue. But if he were to have a kid, he could have a child that had blue eyes because he does have that blue eye gene. Okay? So this is when you have two alleles which are different. So you might have the brown eye gene from dad and the blue eye gene from mom, or vice versa. I think I said it wrong there, but that's okay. Let's take a look at our three genes here. For gene A, homozygous or heterozygous? Homozygous. For gene B, homozygous or heterozygous? Homozygous. And for gene C, heterozygous. Okay? And if you're interested in where the word zygous comes from, this is not required, but I will mention it. A zygote is a fertilized egg. So you have mom's genes in the egg and you have dad's genes in the sperm, and when the two of them combine together, then you have a zygote. Okay? So an egg plus a sperm equals a zygote. It is the single cell that you have before it starts dividing. Okay, and that's why we have homozygous, because you got like the combination of the egg and the sperm. The zygote is the combination of the mom and the dad. So that is not required, but it does tell you kind of where that zygous came from. Would you like to do this next part on your own, or do you want to do it together? Together, okay. Actually, what we're going to do is I'm going to have you tell your partner, and then we're going to write it down together, okay? Pairs of chromosomes that have all the same genes, but just slightly different versions. What do we call those chromosomes, those pairs of chromosomes? We call them, no, we call them homologous, homologous chromosomes. Everyone practice saying it out loud. One member of the, that was like 3 people. Everybody practice saying it out loud. One member of the homologous. Why do I make you say it out loud? It activates different neurons in your brain than so now you have speaking neurons as well as hearing neurons as well as seeing neurons, which means you have 3 ways of remembering instead of just 2 ways. Okay? One member of the homologous pair of chromosomes came from your mom. What's the symbol for mom? The Venus mirror. And one came from your dad. What's the symbol for dad? Shield and spear. Excellent. Which prefix means the same? Tell your partner. Which prefix means different? Obviously, it would then have to be hetero. What is the word we use for different versions of a gene? Alleles, I like it. Okay? Alleles. Alleles. Okay? I like allele. It sounds like something you do in Hawaii or something. I don't know. It makes me think of tropical sands and the beach, and you know, it's just nice. Okay. Examples of alleles, or alleles if you prefer. are different versions of an eye color gene. And it's not that there's just always like two alleles. You could have a brown eye gene, you can have a blue eye version, you can have a green eye version. There's even people who have like sort of amber color eyes, people who have gray eyes, you know, there's all sorts of different colors. If the allele that you got from your mom and from your dad are the same, what do we say? We say that those genes are, we say that they are homozygous. Homozygous. The zygote has two genes that are the same for that trait. If the alleles you got from your mom and your dad are different, we say that you are heterozygous. Heterozygous. Now we get into like the complicated bit, so we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about it today, and then we're going to come back and revisit it again on Monday, so you have like the weekend to process some of it and then be confused by it, and then hopefully come back and be unconfused by it, because it is confusing when you start, okay? So just, you know, sit back and don't worry if you're confused. It's just natural, okay? So here we have a cell. This is a cell just hanging out, and it has two chromosomes. Those two chromosomes have gene G at the same place, gene R at the same place, gene S and gene T all at the same place. What do we call those two chromosomes? They are, but they don't have the same versions necessarily. What do we call those? Those are homologous chromosomes, yes. Okay, these are homologous pair of chromosomes. Now, you might be used to seeing chromosomes represented as X-like structures, yes, with two sides. But you'll notice that these ones only have one side, yes? There's no X's. There's X's on the right-hand side of the page, but on the left-hand side, there's only one. That is because these homologous chromosomes have not been copied yet, okay? So we call them unreplicated, okay? They are unreplicated. So they have not been copied yet. Now, saying they haven't been copied yet implies that they will have to be copied at some point. Tell your partner, why do we have to make a copy of the chromosomes? Why would we need to do that? Okay, why do chromosomes have to get a copy made of themselves? Why do we need to copy the chromosomes? chromosomes. What would you need another copy for? For when they split. Exactly. So when a cell divides, and that's how everything gets bigger, and that's how you like repair damage and whatever, your cells have to divide. And if you don't make a copy of all the chromosomes, then this cell's only going to get half your DNA, and that cell's only going to get half your DNA. Is that good? No, because then if those went on to split, you would then get a quarter and a quarter. And then you would end up with an eighth and an eighth. And that would be really bad because now you've got hardly any of your genetic information left. Yes, hi. Of course. Okay. So before the cell divides, it has to make a copy of all the DNA. And that process is known as DNA replication. Replication just means copying. And that's so that each daughter cell gets a full set of chromosomes. Now, this is another new word that we have today. When we make a copy, we go from having a chromosome like this to having a chromosome like this. Yes? This is a chromosome. This is still called a chromosome. This is called an unreplicated chromosome. This is called a replicated chromosome. So this is an uncopied chromosome. This is a copied chromosome. It's still just called one chromosome. Okay? The two halves of the replicated chromosomes, and you can see over here, now we have, let's make it so you can see the whole thing. Come on, back there we go. Do you see how we have the red chromosome and it looks exactly the same on both sides? We have G, G, R, R, S, S, little t, little t. Yes? Those are identical. Yes, they are perfect copies of one another. And the blue chromosome has little g, little r, little s, big T, big T. Okay, and so it has two perfect copies of the same genetic material. And we call those two copies sister chromatids. Sister chromatids. Sister chromatids are identical to each other. Second thing you should know about sister chromatids is that they are stuck together. Okay? See how they're stuck together sort of at the center of the X? Okay. So if my arm is a chromosome that's just in a cell hanging out doing its normal business, it's not getting ready to divide, it's just going to sit here, and it'll be long and thin and noodly. Can you imagine my noodly arm? Okay, we'll unravel it and it'll be all long and thin and noodly. Now, the cell wants to get ready to divide. What has to happen next? We have to make a copy. It should be identical. There we go. Okay, so now we have two identical copies of the chromosome. Yes? 1, 2. What? And they're stuck together. What do we call those two copies? Those are called the sister chromatids. Say it with me, sister chromatids. How many do we have right here? How many sister chromatids? 1, 2. These are the sister chromatids. This is a chromosome, this whole thing. Is this a replicated chromosome or an unreplicated chromosome? This is replicated. What would an unreplicated chromosome look like? You show me. Unreplicated chromosome. Excellent. Make it replicated. Excellent. Now the cell is going to divide. Okay? And then it'll get chopped down the middle. You'll get sliced down the middle. I'm sorry. And then one arm will be over here in this cell, and one arm will be over there in that other cell. But they will have two identical copies, one for each cell. Yes? Now, in order to picture the whole homologous chromosome here, I need a volunteer from the audience. Excellent. Perfect. Okay, so you're going to stand behind me. Okay, because you're a little bit taller than I am. That's good. Okay. Now, he has an arm. Yes? Yes. Hold up your left arm. Okay. Two arms. Are they identical? No. Are they similar? Yes. They all have thumbs. They all have elbows, right? There's a lot of similarities there. Those are, what would those represent? What kind of chromosomes? We have a pair of unreplicated chromosomes. They are unreplicated, but they are also, because they are similar, they are homologous. Okay? We have one, we'll say yours is for the one from dad, okay, and this is the one from mom. So they're similar, but they're not identical, right? Now, the cell wants to divide. What has to happen? We have to make a copy. Boom. What do we have now? How many chromosomes do we have? We still have two. This is a chromosome, this whole thing, and that's a chromosome, that whole thing. How many chromatids do we have? 4. Okay? 2 sister chromatids here, 2 sister chromatids there. All right? And now the cell is going to divide. You ready to divide? Here, 1, 2, 3, go. Okay? And now there's a cell over here, and there's a cell over there. You see how these, we still have a homologous chromosome. You're really good at this. My other class is not really good. And then we have the other one over here. We still have a homologous pair here, and a homologous pair here, and now they are unreplicated chromosomes. Thank you. You were very good at that. So, are we kind of getting the idea? Okay. And you know what? If you want to, I know it sounds silly, but find a friend, find a place where you can do this where you won't be embarrassed, and do that little enactment, you know, and be like, okay, unreplicated chromosomes, homologous pair of unreplicated chromosomes. Okay. Okay, we're getting ready to divide. Replicated chromosome. How many sister chromatids? It would be 4 if there were 2 of us, right? You know what I mean? You can get together and do that. And if you actually physically do it, That engages yet another set of neurons in your brain. So now you not only have hearing neurons, sight neurons, sound neurons, you also have physical neurons, okay? Whew. It's my workout for the day. Okay. So we have a pair of replicated homologous chromosomes. Now the cell is ready to divide. So in the pair of homologous chromosomes above, what would we say about the individual and all of their traits? We have big G, big R, big S, little t, big T. What's that word we would use to describe them for all of their traits? They are heterozygous for all of their traits. So the homologous chromosomes are similar, but they are not exactly the same. Sister chromatids, on the other hand, are identical. They are exactly the same as each other. And what do we call the two halves of a replicated chromosome? Sister chromatids. What do we call the sister chromatids after they have separated? We call them chromosomes. Okay? After sister chromatids separate, we call them chromosomes, and they are once again unreplicated chromosomes. So I think we should all do the chromosome dance, which just involves your arms. You don't have to do much dancing. Okay? If you want to stand up, you can stand up though. Okay? So we're going to start. Everybody's going to start with one chromosome. Okay? One chromosome. Now the cell gets ready to divide. What happens next? What kind of a chromosome is this now? Replicated. What happens next before the cell divides? Whoosh. What kind of chromosomes do we have now? Unreplicated. Okay? So, unreplicated chromosome. Replicated chromosome with two chromatids. Whoosh. Two separate unreplicated chromosomes. One more time, one last time. Unreplicated chromosome. Replicated chromosome with two chromatids. The chromatids separate and become whoosh, chromosomes. And if you guys are on your test and you're like, whoosh, I'll know what's happening and it will be okay. All right? Okay, I'm telling you, in 3 years' time, You guys will be graduating, and you'll be going to your grad dinner dance, and I will be at your grad dinner dance, and I want to see you do the chromosome dance. I want everyone up there. I'm kidding, I wouldn't make you do that, but the idea is really fun. Okay, we're actually going to skip a couple of things to go here. This is page 96. And this just goes through, again, the differences between sister chromatids and homologous chromosomes. Without looking, here, I'm going to get rid of it for a second. What is a trait? A characteristic. Excellent. What is an allele? Yeah, it's an isotope for a gene. Yeah, that's right. Different versions of the same gene. Yes. What is homozygous? Where you have the same exact alleles. And what is heterozygous? Where you have different alleles. Excellent. So one thing we're going to go through is this little quick list here. Homologous chromosomes are the same size as each other. Sister chromatids are also the same size as each other. Homologous chromosomes have the same shape. Sister chromatids have the same shape. Homologous chromosomes have genes for all the same traits. Sister chromosomes have genes for all the same traits. So far, they're sounding exactly the same. And they all have genes at the same location. There we go. But we finally start hitting things that are different. Homologous chromosomes, some alleles are the same, some alleles are different. So you'll have, you know, because you're not going to get identical alleles from mom and dad all the time. Some of them will be the same. I got blue eyes from both my mom and my dad, but I definitely got like short genes from my mom. And I might have got a tall gene from my dad, but tall genes actually tend to be a bit recessive. So yeah, we have very strong short genes in my family. My grandfather apparently was only 5'2". Yeah, so I'm glad I made it to 5'2". I'm like, yes, yes, yeah. So some are going to be the same, but some are going to be different. But sister chromatids, all the alleles are identical because they are exact copies. Whereas for homologous chromosomes, some are the same and some are different. Homologous chromosomes are similar, but they are not identical. But sister chromatids are identical. Chromosomes can be either replicated or they can be unreplicated. And sister chromatids, they're just half of a replicated chromosome. Chromosomes are present both before and after replication because you have chromosome and then you have chromosome. It's just unreplicated chromosome and then replicated chromosome. But you don't really have a chromatid until the thing is replicated. Okay? Now, there's one part that we haven't mentioned yet, and that is the thing that holds them together, and that is the centromere. There are centromeres on the unreplicated chromosomes, but they don't do anything really. They just kind of hang out and wait to hold the two sister chromatids together. So do you see here we have homologous chromosomes? But there's no mention of chromatids because they're not yet replicated. Over here, the homologous chromosomes are the two separate X's. One is green and one is yellow. They are similar, but they are not identical. Our sister chromatids, on the other hand, here is a pair of sister chromatids, the yellow and the yellow. Here's another pair of sister chromatids, the green and the green, and those two sister chromatids are identical to one another. These two sister chromatids are identical to one another, okay? Obviously, if you have homologous chromosomes, they're separate chromosomes. They're not held together by a centromere. You can see, like, here's one member of the homologous pair. There's another member of the homologous pair. They're not held together by a centromere, right? Over here, we've got the two homologous chromosomes. We've got this one and this one. They are not held together by a centromere. The chromatids within each individual chromosome are held together by the centromere. Homologous chromosomes are present all the time, except in eggs and sperm, okay? Eggs and sperm have only one chromosome from every homologous pair. Otherwise, your poor little baby would end up with 92 chromosomes, and then their child would have 184 chromosomes, and then, you know, and so on, and like you would just end up with a child with like an infinite number of chromosomes, and that would be bad. Sister chromatids are only just present just before the cell divides, when the DNA has replicated. There's a couple of little videos here. We will watch those on Monday. If you want to preview them on your own over the weekend, you can. There's, you know, if you're kind of like, these concepts, they seemed okay on Friday when we were all doing the chromosome dance, but now it's Sunday and I don't remember them. There's just quick little videos here. You can watch those. But for now, I'm going to get you guys to review these concepts for yourself by doing the exercises on pages, I think it's 97 to 99. Yeah. Where did it go? Pages 97 to 99. You'll notice we've skipped over a lot of like little sections. Those are going to be for next week for reviewing concepts, okay? But today's homework, pages 97 to 99, and you're going to make your vocab list. If you leave your vocab list till next Wednesday or Thursday, it's not going to be a very good vocab list, and it'll be hard for you to find things. What I want you to do is I want you to really like make that list over the weekend, so that then if you realize, oh, on Monday, oh, I have some things I need to add to it, or I need to change something, you can do that. Plus, you can just use it as a study tool to familiarize yourself with it, so you don't have to be desperately searching and not knowing where anything is, right? You can just be like, oh, I've got this thing, I know where everything is, it's like mine, okay? So, pages 97 to 99, and your vocab sheet. And that's it. We've essentially done this unit, other than, like I said, the review that we're going to be doing, and it will be extensive. We will do a lot of review next week. And I'm going to press stop recording, because that would be clever.